Hello, my name is Mike with Riggy Production. Today we're going to talk about Polaris Ride Command, and I'm going to try to help clarify some of the instructions that Polaris included with Ride Command to help make the installation process go that much easier for you. First, before we get into that a little bit, I'll just tell you about Riggy Productions. It's my friend Carl and I. We do a lot of our own installation on our vehicles, bolt-on accessories. We've dealt with, we've installed clutches, we've replaced swing arms, A-arms. We do all our own tire mounting, powder coating, LED light installation, electronic installation. Like I say, we installed Ride Command. We do a lot of things. We pretty much, not too much we haven't tackled yet or not afraid to tackle. A little bit about this machine. This is my new Razor 1000 XP. Just so you know, all the plastic, basically the XPs are the same as a 900 and a 1000S from the seats forward. So all this plastic came off a 900. This EMP bumper came off a 900. The mud flaps came off the 900. Obviously, no big deal, but the side view mirrors came off a 900. LED lights, everything. The only thing I couldn't replace on a 900 onto this was obviously the rear quarter panels and anything to do with the swing arm, because swing arms are particular on the 1000 XPs and 1000 XP turbos. So if you do have a question about Polaris Ride Command, anything else installation wise, feel free to hit us up. Even ride questions, we've ridden in Nevada, Utah, California, Tennessee, Wisconsin, North Dakota, Minnesota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Indiana. Where else? I think I mentioned Tennessee. Taking part in festival Rally on the Rocks, taking part of festival Mud Nationals. I've taken part of the ride festivals in South Dakota and Nebraska. We do riding all over the United States when we get a chance to do it. So if you have questions about ride spots, feel free to hit us up and maybe we can answer those questions too. But like I said, today we're going to talk particularly about the Polaris Ride Command. Okay, first of all, I'll just show you, this is the 9-page pamphlet that comes with your Polaris Ride Command, and I'll explain this diagram a little bit better to you. So with the Polaris Ride Command, you have to buy obviously the console, which is Polaris price $1,500, and then the actual, you have to buy the console to hold the computer screen, which is another $200. Not going to get into what I paid or what you got to pay, whether you win it anywhere from $0 to $1,700. But the diagram here will include, you will need to buy the center console. It'll have 3 or 4 different wires. The main piece here is the actual harness, and that'll be one unit in the box. Then you'll have a separate wire, which this is actually the front GPS and the front temperature gauge for the outdoor temperature. Then you will also have your wire, your AM/FM antenna wire that goes to the front antenna for your AM/FM radio, and that's pretty much it. Okay, looking at page 2, page 2 basically just tells you your parts, tools you'll need is a drill, 3/16 inch drill bit, a 1/2 inch drill bit, and a 7/8 inch drill bit. Heat gun, a couple screwdrivers, couple Torx screwdrivers, a utility knife, and that's pretty much it. If you can get a buddy to help, that's even better. Other than that, it took my friend and I 2.5 hours to install. They say approximately 2 hours, but it took us 2.5. Next, on page 3, it talks about you'll remove the upper dash panel. To remove the panels, it's pretty straightforward. If you've never done it before, I can quickly show you, but I've already got mine there's a couple Torx screws right here, and you basically just push it forward and and it should pop out. It'll be a little tougher than that, but it won't be much more difficult than that. But you'll be just bolting on the rear bracket to the actual 7-inch ride command display, and then from there you'll be bolting it on to the new dash, as well as you'll be pulling out the old light switch, the old 4-wheel drive switch, and then I have a couple extra switches for my LED lights and my winch. So I had to pull those out. I had to cut new holes in the dash to install those two. These two are already prefabricated in there, so you literally just push those two buttons in and you're good to go. Okay, page 4 talks about transferring the pins and wires from the original 16-inch connect or 16-pin connector that come with the Razor to begin with, and you'll be transferring them to your 32-pin connector, which is this connector here, which plugs into the ride command. It's pretty straightforward. You're basically just going to be popping up some white tabs. These pins pop out, and it tells you, and the holes are labeled. The holes are labeled on the back of the pin. It'll say, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. They'll be labeled in the back here, and you'll see them, and then you just transfer them to the new 32 pin connector, and they'll also be numbered. So it's pretty straightforward in there. A little tedious, but pretty straightforward. Once you got that, next on page 5, I guess it's just a continuation of further instructing you how to transfer the pins in the 32 pin connector, and plugging it into your harness or setting it aside. That is still the front part of the harness that's connected to that 32 pin connector. Probably the hardest part in the whole thing is joining these two. I believe the one that comes out of the original 16 is the number 8 connector, and then there's a loose wire that comes out of the I believe it's also I think it's the 32 pin connector, but basically you'll be putting those two together. You'll put the heat, this is the only part where you heat shrink. So you'll slide the heat wrap over it, you plug those two in, and then you heat it up, and that wire is good to go, and then you're pretty much done with your whole 32 pin connector. And okay, page 6 of the instructions is the installation of the AM/FM antenna. And as you can see, it basically gets installed right here. I mean, you technically could probably put it anywhere you want on your machine. The cables probably are most effective used somewhere here on the front dash. You have to drill 2 holes at this time. I think the one was the 1/2-inch drill bit in the it was a 1/2-inch drill bit and a 3/16-inch drill bit, and that's for the actual antenna mount here. One thing to be conscious of, I was real close here, just ran alongside this indentation here, but maybe move those holes over just a little bit. So I was really close, and then I would have had to maybe drill a couple more holes. So just be conscious of that, to move them over a little bit to the right on this left-hand side, or move it over to the right so you don't run into that problem. And then after that, you can I got mine pretty tight, so it stays nice and stable. The other thing is, after that, you're going to be, once you drill those holes, you're going to be pushing that through, and then there's a couple bolts that you got to bolt from underneath the front quarter panel, and that's this right here. So you'll have the actual the ground strap in the antenna harness. So you'll lay the ground strap first, and then the antenna harness below that, and then you have your bolt below that, and you will tighten that up. And this is where the ground strap goes. It's just connected to the ground right here on this Torx bolt, so it's pretty straightforward to get underneath there. And as you can see, you got your frame bar that goes here, and you can see where mine is up underneath there, and that's where you'll just run the AM/FM antenna in the ground strap right there and bolt it on, and then we just got the AM/FM antenna strap then going through the firewall, and then we zip tied it. It's a little long, so we just zip tied it right there, and it's just held up, and then it plugs right into, you would see it. It's a standard AM/FM plug-in on the back of the ride command. Next thing you'll be doing is you'll be connecting. There's two pin connectors, so to speak. There is a 16 pin connector and a 32 pin connector on this one, so you'll be plugging those in, and they're actually, the 16 is already included on the harness itself, and you don't have to mess with that one. You're transferring the 16 pin connector from the old machine to the 32 pin connector here. Included on there you have a, so when you install a stereo, I haven't got the speakers or amplifier yet, but you'll have all these, and that's for later hooking up, or at the current time if you have speakers and amplifiers and all that. But so those will all be on the driver's side of the firewall, and the rest of the harness you will be pushing through the firewall, and we push it through right there, the bigger hole in the firewall, because my other one's kind of full of winch wires and everything else. But you'll be pulling through the actual temperature sensor part, you'll be pulling through the GPS antenna, and you'll also be pulling through the AM/FM antenna, as well as the front camera if you decide to mount one on the front of your machine. But you'll be pulling all those through this firewall, that whole display or setup of wires. And then from there, there's a couple other little harnesses that you just gotta disconnect from the old machine, which is this one right here. And you'll drill a hole through the firewall, you'll plug it in, and then you'll be plugging this harness in, and then you'll be plugging a new one in right here as well. This one was already there, but just got to replug a new part of the harness is already included. You just snap it in there and it's good to go. Mine's kind of a mess. I got to clean this up, but I have a lot of stuff connected up here. As you can see from my bus bar, it's getting pretty full. Kind of running the temperature wire, which gives you your outdoor temperature. So that's coming through the firewall, and it's right here, as you can see, and then it runs down. There is a little connector that we could connect right there. We just use zip ties, but that'll be coming down and around, and then you can see it kind of runs down the frame right there, and then it'll be coming through. I got my winch wires coming through right there, but I also went ahead and ran that temperature wire, so then that comes through, and we ran it right alongside there, and then you can see it down in there, and there's a little fastener, and it connects there, and there's the temperature end of it anyhow. So that's run through that sidewall right there and comes through the firewall, and you mount it right on there, and it's just a snap-in wire. And then also on that wire, and I believe it's the next thing on page 8, it talks about installation of the GPS. Well, the GPS is right there. You'll be just cleaning up the surface, put the arrow forward, and there's a little adhesive part, stick it on there, and then you can see from there, there's the wire harness, just plugs right into the GPS, and that's the same wire harness that connects the front video, the GPS, and the temperature. So that just plugs right into there. And okay, now let's turn it on and see if it works. So as you can see, it's the RPMs are working, and you've got a couple different options here. You can choose which dash you want. If you had a camera, that'd be hooked up there. This here is just to choose your front there. That one's to choose your music station. This is your navigation, your cell phone, and then some of the special features. With your GoPro, ride status, diagnostics, lock screen, etc., etc. This pulls down right there, so you can check your phone all the time. Then you can see the lights work, everything's connected. Four-wheel drive will come on once you put it in gear. So there, the four-wheel drive indicator came on. Got my other lights working. winch is on. Everything's good. Your gears show up there. When you hit the reverse, if I had a camera, it would show up, but none of those show up. The only thing is you do lose, I haven't found, you do lose your miles from your previous dash. You do lose your miles from the previous speedometer that you had included in the machine. So you might want to make a note. I'm still trying to find out if the miles are transferable into this, but as of right now, they have not showed up. So this was a new machine. I only had like 20-30 miles on it, so I'm really not too worried about it. But if you are buying this and you have a machine with, you know, several hundred or even 1,000, it might be something you want to figure out, or at least maybe you can go in the computer somehow and get the miles in there. But anyhow, like I say, I'm happy with the overall product. I can't wait to get on the trails this year and see how it works out on the trails. I took it around the block the other day, north, south, west, east, all turned accordingly as I made the turns. The temperature adjusted to the outside temperature. Obviously the clock's right. The temperature of the engine was working. Fuel gauge is accurate, so everything's good to go. So meanwhile, hope you enjoyed. This can help you clarify some of the installation on the Polaris Ride Command. I hope it does. Like I say, subscribe to Ridgy Productions, and in the future we look forward to having some trail rides on there with some good footage of us getting a little dirty. Thank you.